Hello and welcome back to Dump Slate, a podcast about movies. My name is Felix and I'm your host. We only have 4 minutes and 20 seconds and a lot to cover, so let's get started. Today we are talking about Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, directed by Terry Gilliam, starring Johnny Depp, Benicio Del Toro, but also featuring Toby Maguire, Cameron Diaz, Christina Ricci, Christopher Meloni, and more. Based off Hunter S. Thompson's novel of the same name, the film follows Raoul Duke, a journalist played by Depp, and his lawyer, Dr. Gonzo, played by Del Toro, as they chase the American dream of excess in the city that bleeds excess, Las Vegas, while completely intoxicated by drugs the entire film. On the surface, the film is just Johnny Depp tripping balls the entire time, kind of acting like a combination of Wonka and Jack Sparrow, but the film actually has some roots in history. First and foremost, Depp is playing Hunter S. Thompson. Duke is just his character name. Thompson, who I just learned about while researching this film, popularized what's called gonzo journalism, which expresses the narrative of the story from the first person, essentially how Johnny Depp is talking throughout the film the entire time, versus traditional articles and stories that you see. On top of portraying Thompson's real-life accounts during this film, the story itself is actually dark and beyond reckless, if even a fraction of the drugs they were taking was in fact anywhere near accurate or the accounts that they were saying. With that being said, the film at the end of the day is 85% of the time just them tripping on drugs. And yes, this is fun, but with a runtime of just under 2 hours, could have probably been shaved down just a little bit. Being a Gilliam film, famous British director whose only other films I've seen are the Monty Python series, has a filmography that as a cinephile, I should be ashamed I haven't dug into yet. So on that note, the ridiculousness does completely make sense, but it still is a film that you really have to be in the mood for, and unfortunately, during this watch, I wasn't really in the mood. What I did like a lot about this film were the depthful parts between them tripping absolute balls. First off, the wave speech that Depp recites about being in San Francisco during the 60s as a part of the hippie movement and the peaceful protests. Recalling how it felt so powerful and the impact of momentum they had, almost feeling as if they were winning. Yet, at a certain point of riding this amazing wave, just less than 5 years later, it all faded away. And looking out into the Vegas mountains, he can see what's called the high water mark and how it's only fallen since, which resembles the society he's in during the time that he's speaking. Now, I was actually on my phone leading up to this speech, and it wasn't until they actually started showing the footage of the peaceful protests that I really had to rewind to kind of see what was going on. And it was really moving to me and made it way more interesting for me to actually finish the movie. But then again, on the second half, it just goes into another bender of them until probably the last 15 minutes when Raoul Duke is going over the tape that he's listening to that he was recording while they were tripping balls the entire time. And you actually see the actual accounts of what happened versus what they experienced and what was shown in the film. And after a certain point, you just start going, this is pretty sad. And it's almost at that moment that Duke brings up Timothy Francis Leary, psychologist and author who's pretty much known for taking a bunch of psychedelics, tripping balls, and almost glorifying it. And Duke goes into how people read this and they want to experience it themselves just like he did. And he's basically saying how they're not going to have the same experience that he glorified because he just had it and it's basically hell the entire time, as you can see in the film. And I really thought this was just kind of a cool ending to the film because it does make sense of all the ridiculousness. I actually ended up liking it a little bit more than what I expected it to end because it does just confirm how reckless and stupid, honestly, the entire film is. And these two sequences are really what made me like the film overall. And I'm almost out of time, so I got to move on to the important things. My rating, 3.5. Average rating, 3.8. My favorite Letterboxd review comes from Witch, who gave it 5 stars, stating, Toby Maguire is the most terrifying thing I've ever fucking seen. And this is it. Jesus Christ. When should I start smoking? I wrote down in my notes to light up at exactly 17 minutes and 12 seconds, which is when Johnny Depp goes to light a cigarette from a stranger. And honestly, at this point, if you don't like the movie, turn it off. But if you're going to continue watching, you might as well join them for the ride. How Vegas is this film? Honestly, the most accurate part about this film is the portrayal of North Vegas. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening. Join us next Monday at 4:20 where we cover Fright Night from 2011 by Craig Gillespie and Cut. We're literally smoking and talking about movies.